1, and we are live. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Hey, everybody. Mike Lawson here with CU Broadcast. As you can see, we have a motley crew with us today. Oh, no. It's great people here with us today here on the old virtual studios. But we're doing a little live cast today with some fine folks here in the credit union industry. As you can see right next to me, we have Tansley Stearns from Community Financial Credit Union in the fine state of Michigan. Tansley, how are you?
I'm great, my friend. So good to be here with you.
Good to be here as well. And I'm glad you guys are here. And then right below us is none other than Mr. Kirk Drake from CU 2.0. As you can see the branding over his left shoulder there. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Better now that you guys are here because you guys have partnered up, or at least your organizations have partnered up, CU 2.0 and Community Financial. Actually, no, it's actually Room 39A, right, Tansley? That yes. Those two have partnered up to create this cool event called Launch, which was formerly CU 2.0, right, Kirk?
Yeah, CU2 Live before. Now it's CU2 Launch. It's kind of the
name. Okay, that's right. Okay. Yeah. All right. So, but I want to take a step back and talk about what exactly is Launch. Tansley, I want you to start off with you since, well, ladies first, obviously, but also just, let's get going with this. So what is Launch? What is it? And then Kirk, obviously you can join in what the evolution is as well.
Well, I'll begin with our CUSO. So Room 39A was really an idea that we grew to help credit unions to have insights that they can use through their strategy and most importantly, be able to act on those ideas. As we've built our CUSO strategy, an important part of that is thinking about what's something we're already doing that we might share more broadly with the credit union movement. Our board thinks about our ends, what they talk about in terms of vision and impact. As not only folks across the great state of Michigan, they also think about our credit union movement. And so this is really what that's all about. And we had been for 3 years since I got here, developing insights and using those insights to come up with new ideas to solve problems for Michiganders in unique ways.
Yep.
And we think that Room 39A will allow us to do that with credit unions across the country. And as you might imagine, people's lives are very full. So when we talk about this, they might not know about it yet. So Kirk and I thought we could partner up to think about how we elevate that story and have more people participating.
And real quickly, the reference to Room 39A, because we had Danielle on a month or so ago, or what's the reference with, just for those couple of people who didn't see that first interview, the reference of Room 39A, what's that?
Yeah, so it was the launch pad for us taking off into space. So that's what it's all about. Yeah.
Okay, good deal. All right, Kirk, let's get the evolution here of CU 2.0 Live to Launch, or CU Launch Live.
Yeah. So first off, I just want to say your garage looks fantastic.
Thank you. It's a work in progress.
Yes.
It's all for you, Kirk. What will Kirk think when he comes on the show? Will he like it?
And then, really, I think the evolution was this is our fourth one. And really it started as a way to get fintechs and credit unions in the room, having constructive conversations around how to partner, how to do things together. And when I heard about 39A and said, boy, this seems like a great way where you guys have some great credit union research and dynamics and some of those things. We have a ton of information on great fintechs and interesting things we're doing there. What if we combine these things so that we have kind of the credit union track, the fintech track, and then a combined, how we work on this in a broader way. And so that's really the strategy behind it. I think it's evolved over time where, we're really what we try to do is have it's the hardest part, I think, of selling this and getting credit unions involved is we don't really tell you what we're doing, right? Like it's somewhat loose in that. Everybody absolutely loves it. But there's a certain element of secrecy in how we build the agenda and how we do that. And partly the reason for that is we all go to a lot of conferences where you kind of look at the agenda and go, that guy looks interesting. That woman looks great. This one looks really boring. I don't care about that. And when you're not kind of playing all out and leaning into all of that, you miss opportunities of connections and you kind of filter your viewpoints very early on. So we find by it will have many of those same things with great speakers, usually a little more intimate where they're not just speaking at you, but they're working with you in some capacity. And they're usually there for the event as well. So they're getting something out of it. So it's not like people are just flying in and flying out. When we have different speakers in there, we really want that to be much more interactive. And that combined impact makes it really an immersive learning and expansive opportunity where you start thinking about the world a little differently and about how you show up in it and how your credit union shows up in it, and how your fintech shows up in it, and all that kind of stuff.
What you call it, it's what's the terminology you called it? It's not it isn't a conference, it's a launch pad. Here's the saying right there, if you can see that. So what's the meaning behind that real quick?
Yeah, so as someone who probably mostly suffers from ADHD and can't stand the normal conference format as a way of learning, I don't really wanted to make something that is much more dynamic, much more fast-paced, and much really solving hard problems, right? I think a lot of times what content shows up in the credit union industry is stuff that's been tried other places for 10 years, and we're the late adopter of it. And that tends to be problematic in my mind of how we're going to survive long term. And so this gives us the ability to showcase cutting edge research, cutting edge techniques, cutting edge opportunities that get us working together. And we don't necessarily know what the outcome is going to be of the event. We don't necessarily know what collaborations are going to occur. We know that collaborations don't occur without trust, without friendship, without knowing how you're going to divide the baby when it goes poorly, right? And how to get out of things in there. And so we know the formula when it is successful, but we don't necessarily know what that success is going to be. And so the launch piece is very, akin to that, of how do we put that together in a way that creates that weird, amoeba broth, kind of thing. Weird
amoeba broth. Yes, I'm going to remember that one. So only you could come up with something like that. So now, Tansley, I'm glad you're here. Obviously, you're an integral part of this partnership, but I'm glad you're here from the credit union perspective as well. I want to get your take on what your thoughts are on this partnership and then this event coming up from the credit union perspective. What's your take on it, and what do you hope and other credit unions hope to gain from this?
Well, I've had team members attend this event, and they've had great experiences, and they are folks that have been to a lot of events and are hard to impress, and it's really received great feedback. So I have that grounding. I also really have enjoyed, Kirk and I have been working together a bit more closely over the course of the last couple of years, and believe that what he talked about is really something he's committed to and CU2 is doing, which is, how do we act on these things? How do we ensure that these ideas move forward? The example I often give is around the next generation of members. I started in credit unions in 1998, which makes me mature. And we were at that time going to credit union conferences talking about the average age of our members and what were we going to do about it. And if you pull up a credit union event, you're going to see content around that topic still.
Yep.
The generation we were talking about is now having children.
That's right.
So we have a responsibility to stop talking and start doing. And that's what I'm really enthusiastic about, both around this event and around Room 39A. An example that I'll give you in terms of some of the work that we did around this rapid research and prototyping was, we did some research around women that were impacted by domestic violence. We listened to survivors, and that led us to a loan program that allowed us to better support those and those impacts. That kind of listening, research, learning, and then moving into action is exactly what Room 39A is all about. And I'm really excited to have this event so that more people can put these ideas into action, because credit unions are the solution for economic pain. We can't be that solution if we aren't continuing to stay relevant and to iterate and move forward, because people need us.
Yeah. Oh, couldn't agree more. Okay. My next, after you're saying that, how do we get credit unions to act? How does this event in particular prompt credit unions to start act? Because we go to these conferences, like you say, Tansley, and we talk and it's great content and lots of takeaways, and we come away all motivated, but then we get back into the office and we get back into the daily grind, and all of a sudden what was talked about is a little dusty on the shelf, a couple of months later. But how do we get folks to, because that's my whole thing, is like, great content, great stuff, but how do we get people to take that first step to act, Tansley, I want to get your take on this first, and then Kirk, you can certainly chime in, sir.
Well, I hope they'll join us because that's a great way to get started.
Step
We're
one.
definitely going to have some action coming out of this event. And I think the good news about credit unions is that they pay very close attention to what other credit unions are doing.
Yes, they do.
And I'm confident that the folks that attend this event and that join Room 39A are going to be taking action. And I think we can use that to spur more. You know, every step that we take forward and can demonstrate the difference we're making in people's lives and the growth that leads to allows us to have more people raise their hands and ask, how do we do that?
Yeah, I think it's infectious in a good way when we see credit unions like yours and other, like, oh my gosh, I've done more stories on Michigan credit unions in the last couple of years than ever in CU Broadcast entire. It's crazy how many credit unions in Michigan are doing some really, really cool things. So kudos to you guys. Whatever's in the water in Michigan, keep drinking. Okay, because you guys are doing a great job. But I think it's infectious in a good way when we see credit unions like yours doing some great things and they see the results of those actions and those efforts. That's really the proof in the pudding. That's what gets people really moving here. So Kirk, I want to get your take on this since this is an evolution of CU 2.0 Live, and what have you seen in the past and what do you see in the future here?
Yeah, so I think the first thing, if you want to be an action-oriented person in the credit union industry, you have to surround yourself with action-oriented people.
Oh, right? For sure.
And so I always like to think of these events as, a third of the people should be a step ahead of you, a third should be, right alongside of you, and a third should be, that you're helping move up in some way and helping them knock down those things. And so the way we curate the event, the people we have in there tend to be action-oriented people who are here because they want things that they can take back and implement. They understand they don't necessarily need to, play the whole game out, but they need to know what the first step is and how to build momentum in their organizations around new and difficult things, right? And so that, at the end of the day, I wish I could say it was more complex, but if you start hanging around with a bunch of people who are action-oriented, you tend to become more action-oriented, right?
Yep, indeed. And so share with me some of maybe the topics, speakers, anything like that folks can look forward to, Kirk? Sure.
So every year is a little different. It's somewhat dependent on who's coming, right? So we actually wait. Well, we already have, I would say half the content planned at this time. The rest of it will be all generated in the next 2 to 3 weeks as we get close to this. And we handpick people in that regard. So that's partly the surprise element is we're not exactly sure what's going to happen until we know who's coming. There's an intake process. It's not a normal conference. So people have to answer about 15, 20 questions when they come that we use to help figure out how to guide the content. I know like last year or 2 years ago when we did this, we had an AI track that completely changed everybody's perspective on this and really jump-started that with Saruk from Senso. We've had some of the ones that we've also had to dive in real deep on. Sometimes just personal branding and how to think about how to position yourself for your next spot in your career. Sometimes it's, how to take different approaches to fintech partnerships and how to structure this. Sometimes it's success stories from entrepreneurs who've exited for $1 billion, and kind of what the key problems they ran into along the way and how they did that. So it's definitely very dynamic. I know this year's topics will definitely be very focused on continued evolution of AI, continued evolution of kind of different lending programs, different member services, approach, different ways to really think about member growth. I think differently than I like to challenge. I'll give you an example. I really like to challenge the norms of how we think about things. We tend to compare our OpEx to each other all day long, and the reality is we grow our loans, we grow our deposits, and our OpEx looks better, right? And we didn't actually change anything. We didn't become a healthier, better organic version of ourselves. It's sort of like saying, I know, for instance, I can grow muscle mass on my body by gaining weight. The hard part is growing muscle mass on my body without gaining weight. And people notice when I become more fit if I've grown more muscle mass without gaining weight. But if I just gain weight and I gain muscle mass, I just look bigger. Right. It didn't actually get a healthier version of myself. And so I think that's what happens with OpEx, with our loan ratios, all those things. I like that. And diving in and understanding that, it turns out over the last 30 years, we serve the same number of members per employee that we did 30 years ago. which would tell me we're not actually any more efficient, despite our belief that we are, right?
Yeah.
And despite having spent millions of dollars on different IT systems to be more efficient, we're not actually getting the results we want out of that stuff. So how do we begin to approach that differently to accomplish that? And so a lot of that work and stuff that we'll do in here will be diving into some of those topics and redefining how we think about it, to not just be targeting, some random ratio or objective, but to, really get to why do we do these things and what is the purpose and mission behind them that's going to actually help build an organization that sustains over time because it's created some competitive advantage either through a loan product or deposit product, a fintech partnership, whatever it is, and not just reacting to the frothiness that's going on around us.
Who's the ideal attendee for this? Is it find folks like Tansley CEO, credit union CEOs, or
C-level and above
officers, or
definitely we like to have some CFOs, some CTOs, some CLOs, all those different perspectives, some CEOs, varied sizes from a couple $100 million to 10 billion. I suppose we could have more than that. There aren't that many of those credit unions that fit that mold. And so, just really the diversity is what we're looking for, and passion around the industry, the ideas, and the action-oriented piece. That's what we're screening for in our applicants.
And so, Tansley, from the credit union perspective, again, what do you hope folks gain from this? Obviously, because it sounds like a lot of this stuff will be kind of impromptu almost, and which is great. There's a lot of beauty in things not being planned and just kind of working off the cuff. But
it's less impromptu than it sounds. There is definitely a plan behind the scenes. It's just
I get it.
Yeah.
But I've been to things like
a curiosity gap. This is why HGTV works so well, because you can't leave the living room if you know that there's going to be a reveal. Our brains love to not know something. We can't help but follow that path.
Right. So what do you expect folks to gain from this, or what's the big goal here that you guys want to achieve with Launch?
I think a couple things. One is, from my perspective, when I look back at my career, I think the moments where I had these opportunities, as Kirk described, to be surrounded by people who were better and smarter than me, doing things, have led to so many other opportunities. I'll use Linda Arman at Fourleaf as an example. We met in I3. She continues to be a great collaborator of ours. We have a CUSO we've invested in together. We are doing things. We're not just calling and saying, will you send me a policy? And being able to meet her at Feline years and years ago changed my life. Yeah. And I am confident that will happen during this event. I also would say that the action orientation of this will leave people with something they can go do. Now, I can't say you must go do this thing at your credit union. None of us can. And I'm confident that from this event, people will do that. And as I said earlier, the more that happens, the more of us that will pay attention and do something else. And every one of those steps that we take will help credit unions to be better, which ultimately serves everyday Americans.
Well, isn't there a kind of a level of accountability when you're with a group of like this and you guys start doing things, you like kind of check in. So how's that project going? How are you, how's it going on my end, that type of stuff. So there's this kind of subtle accountability, I would think, right? So especially talking with somebody like Linda, are you kidding me?
No, that's right.
She'll push you for sure. So, good stuff. And Kirk, from your point of view, what do you hope folks gain from this, or what's the goal?
I think very, very similar. And I would add, hopefully, a little discomfort, right? Like,
I like that.
You're in a room, and you're the times I've been in rooms like this. Remember my favorite one a couple of years ago. I was hiking up a mountain in Morocco with a group of 20 entrepreneurs, and the guy says to me, I've known him for a while, and he said, "Kirk, do you have anything to talk about other than credit unions?" And I looked at him and I was like, wow, I bet you're not the only one that thinks that. And so I paused and I thought about it for a minute, and I took away from that probably one of my favorite years I've had in a while, where I asked all 20 people on the trip what their favorite book was, non-business book. And I spent the entire year reading that list. And every time I'd finish a book, I'd email someone on that list and be like, hey, I just finished reading this. You're really weird. Like, I can't believe that's your favorite book. Like, or like that really, like, I see why that was your favorite book, you know, or boy, that was a terrible book, right? Like, you know, whatever it was, but there was a connection to that person. And
For
at
sure.
the end of the year, I felt way more diverse in thought and, you know, how I was thinking about things. And it wasn't, sometimes we're just so focused on, you know, what's right in front of us that we can't see all this other stuff out there. And getting someone who can ask you that in a way that doesn't hurt your feelings, or, you know, doesn't publicly shame you in that, is a great way to push you outside of the, you know, what we, especially those of us who've been in this industry for 30, 40 years, like you start to see everything looking the same, right?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Well, I think it sounds like this group of people is certainly diverse enough and action oriented enough that, people will get pushed in many different ways. And so, so looking forward to this, looking forward to hearing how this goes for you guys. All right. Well, I know you guys have a full plate today. I don't want to keep you too much longer, but anything else to add to wrap up here? Tansley, any final thoughts before I let you get back to work?
You know, the last thing I would say is we have such an opportunity as an industry to come together on the things that are common. Collaboration is the gift of our space. It's only that gift if we act on it.
Yep.
And it has to be a verb.
Well
and this is an opportunity to ensure that it is. So step into it and join us.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Kirk, let you have the final word, sir.
No, I can't say it any better. So.
Wow. Well, let's end with the slide here. It's called Launch. It's put on by the partners at CU 2.0 and Room 39A. It's going to be September 23rd, or is it September 23rd to the 25th, Kirk?
Yep.
In Ashland, Oregon, up in your neck of the woods, Kirk. Wow.
Yep.
Beautiful part of the country, beautiful time of the year.
And in our winery. So.
I was about to say, will there be any resistance wine on tap?
There will.
Even better. So, all right, guys. Well, I'm gonna let you get going. Thank you so much. We'll put all the links in the show notes so people can register and find out more, give you guys a call if they have any questions. But thank you so much for your time today. Always appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you down the road. Well done.
Thank you both.
You are welcome. And that is the end of the live stream, as they say.